magic makers, and welcome back to the Metaphysical Apothecary. We are your hosts, Shannon and Megan.
Hi, everyone.
Also known as the Scorpio Sisters, here to explore the mysterious, the magical, and the arcane.
We're excited for our discussion of storm magic. When you hear the term storm magic, you might think, oh, weather magic, I'm familiar with that. I understand rainwater for this and snow for that. And that's very valid. It is definitely part of weather magic, but storm magic in particular has its own sub-niche, shall we say. One of the things we intend to examine is not just storms on our planet. Storms happen throughout the entire cosmos. So we're going to dive into some deep spaces. Pun totally intended.
Totally intended.
Yep.
So everyone knows, I practice a lot of storm magic. I do range from local storms to earth storms to solar system storms fairly easily. This is a topic that's near and dear to me.
Inside every storm cloud, there's so much electricity and there's so much just churning energy and power waiting to be tapped into.
Storm magic at its base is nature amplifying energy. You have all the ionized particles and molecules in the air that can charge an area if it's at the right frequency. There's a lot you can do with storms. And we're going to start talking about local storms and the things you can do and collect while working a storm.
So local storms are exactly what they sound like. They're storms that you yourself experience in your bioregion or your area. Depending on where you are, it could be a thunderstorm, it could be a blizzard, an ice storm, a hurricane, or even a sandstorm if you live in a very hot and sandy area of the world.
If you're living in the plains of the United States, you also have dust storms that will rise up. And that could very well be a storm that you can tap into.
Especially if you are more centered toward earth magic and you want to tap into storm power, a dust storm or a sandstorm might be a good way to go.
If for no other reason, working a casting or a spell or a craft, like if you're crafting something during a storm, if you're creating something during a storm, you can pull the energy from the storm to amplify your own energy, your own power, and your own intent with the excess energy that's being put off by the storm in and of itself. And
yeah,
that's an easy way to use storm magic and to perform storm magic in your local area. A thunderstorm is rolling through and you are in a safe place that will not be compromised, and you can still feel the ionized particles and the electricity that's in the air, or the magic and the power and the energy that's in the atmosphere from said storm. And you can do just about any kind of working you want at that point while you're pulling and drawing the energy out of the storm into your working, as some lunar witches will draw the power of the moon down into their workings. It's kind of the same concept.
Just to emphasize what Shannon said, when you are working storm magic, please exercise safety and precaution. It is not worth your well-being or your life or the well-being of your home, car, etc. to put yourself in a dangerous situation. If the local government is telling you you need to evacuate an area, don't stop and do a hurricane magic working. Please just leave. If you want to perform some on-the-go protection magic as you get out, that would be an incredible thing to do. This is a caveat to say, please care about your personal safety before any kind of working.
Yes, your personal safety, the safety of your pets, your family, your possessions can be replaced. Even as devastating as it is to lose your home because of a storm rolling through, they're replaceable. Your life is not.
Exactly. When you are in a situation that is particularly dangerous and you need to just go, there is absolutely nothing wrong with taking some kind of object and tying it to the storm energy, siphoning that into the object. A crystal is great for this because they're amazing at holding information. Keep that with you and imagine that energy siphoning off of the storm and into a protective bubble around you, your loved ones, your vehicle, wherever it is you happen to be.
You can also use it, or a second stone or object, to hasten your retreat, hasten your evacuation in a safe manner. So you can have a protective item that is tied to the storm magic. You can also work a quickening of your pace magic. So there are several ways that you can use the energy that's coming in front of the storm, because that's still storm energy. The hours, maybe days, sometimes before the storm actually hits you, there's a lot of buildup of energy, and you can just as easily siphon off that type of storm magic before the storm hits. You can do a second working where you tie it to your home so that your home is protected by the storm magic and it sees it as like an eye of the storm and minimize the damage.
Yeah. During our planning session for this episode, Shannon and I also discussed the use of magical workings like drawing the energy off of the storm for the express purpose of weakening that storm, making it less strong, less devastating. If you are predicted to have an extremely severe blizzard, for instance, coming into your area where people might be trapped in their homes, where it might be difficult to travel to get supplies, things of that nature, you can sit and start drawing energy from that storm, siphoning it off, storing it in crystals or other objects, or even within yourself, and transmuting it and using it as healing energy or whatever you need it for. But you can focus on pulling that out and making that storm less devastating.
I will usually do that, and I will just give it back to the earth. I release it. I don't use it for anything else if I'm siphoning it off to minimize the intensity and the potential damage.
That's definitely another way you can do if you don't have a particular working in mind or your sole focus is to protect others. That's an excellent way to keep the energy from overwhelming you, because if we store it in ourselves, it can really mess things up internally if there's no use for it.
Being able to store it in items that you're not carrying, such as crystals or sun catchers, wind catchers, buntings, pendants, if you so choose, or just returning it back to the earth is a good idea, because it's not like you're never going to be able to raise energy.
Right.
You do not have to hoard energy. The energy will be there for you to raise when you need it.
It's always there.
Yeah.
Siphoning energy from a storm too, especially if you're trying to lessen its impact, is also an excellent thing to do if you have a group of witches you work with frequently. It doesn't have to be a coven. It can just be you and a gaggle of your friends, and you don't even have to be in the same space. And that will help keep you from becoming overwhelmed. Also, something if your intent is to make a storm less intense, and that will help pull more of the energy out of the storm. Many hands make light work.
Yeah.
So you can just pull more of that destructive energy out of the storm and hopefully make it less intense.
So now that we've led with the depressing stuff, some things that I like to do and perform is obviously collect the storm waters. After the storm has passed, I will pick up debris and magpie treasures that I find around the yard or on my block or on my walks, and I will bring those back to be worked with. I will charge my crystals and tarot cards and rune sets during a particularly well ionized lightning and thunderstorm. That's something that I do all the time, and it makes me so happy. And what I will do with my storm waters is I will water my plants with them. I will wash my face or my hands. I use it for hair washing. I will use that in a pitcher or a jar and use that to rinse. I use the storm water for cleaning my brushes while I'm painting. I use it in kitchen witch magic when I'm cooking for only myself, brewing tea with my storm magic water. I will also use storm water in floor and wall washes mixed with a little bit of vinegar and some herbs. I mix it in with essential oil sprays, and I'll do a sprinkling across the doors and doorways and windowsills in order to do a blessing or a sealing, remove negative energy that may be directed at my home.
When we're gathering elements from a storm, usually water of some kind, safety considerations are important. If you're gathering rainwater, gather water that is falling directly into a vessel. And the same with snow is also a best practice. Also, if you are going to gather snow after a storm has passed, try to do it as soon as possible after the storm has passed. Only take it from the top layer. Don't take anything that has touched the ground. Don't take anything that has been stepped on by an animal. You'll be able to see the prints. And make sure it's always white. Don't take
if you're going to ingest that, if you're thinking that you're going to ingest that snow, yes. But Grabbing snow from an animal print is actually really good magic for invoking that animal in some kind of working.
Yes. If you're going to ingest the snow, don't use animal prints, but
if you're going to be looking for wolf energy and you'd like to work with wolf, and you happen to find a wolf print in your area, collecting snow from the wolf print or the wolf print itself is not a bad idea.
mm-hmm.
And then you can put it in your, if you're a painter, put it in your water for cleaning your brushes and paint a landscape with wolves in it.
Which could be extremely powerful as a sigil.
Yes, and Odin approves of that so much that he just needs to get closer to the window and tell everyone.
He's letting us know how much it's applause. It's verbal applause.
Yes. It's the only way he can give applause. If you're going to ingest whatever storm magic you're going to ingest, whether it's rain that has fallen or snow that has fallen, boil it before you do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it's freshly fallen and you caught it in the vessel before it touched the ground doesn't mean that you shouldn't boil it. Just be extra careful and everything, because your body is relatively sensitive, if not very sensitive. And again, your life is more precious.
Exactly. There can be, just from the nature of the water cycle, there can be contaminants in clouds that have picked up water from contaminated sources. Mm-hmm. So boiling it, even running it through a charcoal filter, I promise it's not going to dull the energy of the water at all. In fact, it might enhance it because it's now been purified of contaminants that could harm you.
Yes.
So what kind of energy do you personally tap into with using the storm water and storm magic in these ways?
With the storm water, I just tap into the amplification of energy that happens within storms. So that way when I'm collecting it, my intent in the moment of using it will just be amplified. It's not necessarily something that I go into thinking, okay, I want this to be protective magic. Then the entire jar that I collected was protective magic and only protective magic. I won't have an entire glass pitcher of only one type of magic intent with that storm magic.
But instead it's all charged up and almost a blank slate.
Yes. So that way when I'm sitting down at a canvas, I can pour a little bit of the storm magic into the water jar that I use to clean and wet my brushes with, and be able to sit down and say, I want to make this painting a sigil magic painting, meant to inspire and encourage for self-love and self-confidence issues. But the water I have collected from that storm is a blank slate of amplified, charged energy and magic.
Which makes a lot of sense. And the same, I feel, is true for any sort of magpie goodies that you can pick up.
That's a little bit different for me. It can be a blank slate, but if I'm picking up twigs or sticks or branches, I'm picking them up with the intent of creating wands and staves and ogham sticks. So I'm picking up with the intent of divination or directional magic, or with staves, I usually have the intent of supportive magic, because staves are meant to support you while you're walking.
Right.
Well, I don't have the same type of blank slate involved. I'm leaning towards a thought of what kind of magic I'm going to be using with this particular item I'm picking up.
It's a little bit more intentional.
Yeah, a little bit more.
You mentioned divination in terms of storm magic. One of my favorite ways to use storm magic is divination. I'm a seer, I'm a channel, but after a storm, especially, I find myself going for walks, and not necessarily with the intention of picking up treasures, although I will. So many fallen branches and twigs and leaves, they fall into patterns. They fall into patterns of runes. They fall into patterns of Roman numerals. They fall into patterns of spirals, or even just call my attention to a certain area of nature, like a fork in the roots or of a tree or something of that nature, or they give me, it's a spirit message, a download accompanied by spirit tears, which is my eyes will shed tears with the intensity of the energy when I receive a download or a spirit message. And you can also use divination before, during, and after a storm. So if you're going to use divination before a storm, buckle up, because it's going to be intense. What I do sometimes is sit and get myself into a meditative space, and I'll almost astral project into the storm. Then I will look into the formation, most of the time in the area of the world we are, it's going to be thunderstorms or it's going to be blizzards of some kind because we're on the East Coast. So I'll go into the storm clouds in particular, and that provides this black backdrop, and then read the mirror of the electricity that is stored within this. It's going to be raw, and the more energy the storm builds, the more raw it's going to be. So if I want the reading to be a little gentler, I will wait until the storm starts to wind down.
Another form of divination you can do during storms is cloudomancy. So if you're not a seer or you haven't been able to project yourself out into the storm in the way that Megan's discussing, you could look up at the clouds and take note of what they look like and what those images mean to you.
Another form of both divination and other kinds of magic that you can do with residual storm magic is to gather up the wood and use it to make a bonfire. You might be thinking, wet wood, bonfire? What are you talking about? If you have tinder and kindling and you can get a fire going and form a pyramid of the wet wood, you're going to get smoke. You're going to get a lot of popping and cracking and bursting of the wood. First of all, if you intend to cook anything over this, you can boil some storm water over this for tea and double up on your storm magic energy. You can cook something over this campfire style, whether it's marshmallows or whatever it is. You can imbue it with residual storm magic that way, but you can also interpret the smoke. You can read the fire because it's going to be very erratic and very jagged, juddering energy. So the things that you see are going to be very dynamic. And you can also read the burned or dried out, cracked branches afterwards as though they are cracked bones, because those are the bones of the trees, right? So that's all we have on our topic for today. Thank you so much for listening in, and we hope you'll join us again soon. In the meantime, you can follow us for more witchy wisdom, both here and on our blog, and you can also check out our original art on Society 6 for sacred decor and more. Thanks again for joining us. Go make some magic and live your best life.
Bye!